Hey everyone, welcome back to the OrtoTech Garage. My name is Keith. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about purchasing a used vehicle. You may be out there shopping for something, found a car you really like, but you're not sure if you should buy it yet. There's some steps you definitely need to take before you go ahead and pull the trigger and plunk down your hard-earned cash on a vehicle. We're going to go through some things that I generally look for when I purchase a used car and some things you should definitely do before you do that. Let's get out there and get after it. Thinking about buying this car, one of the very first things I like to do is just take the car for a drive. First of all, you need to make sure it's something you want to drive. You enjoy the way it drives, you like the way it feels, the comfort and all those things. Aside from that, we need to check some very basic operations of the vehicle. We want to make sure the transmission is shifting properly. We want to make sure there's no vibrations in the steering. We want to make sure there's no vibrations in the brake. You want to make sure it's not smoking. You're not hearing any engine noises. You want to make sure that it's not misfiring. We also are going to identify if there's any malfunction lights on the dashboard. So there's a lot of things we want to kind of go through on the interior of this cabin while we're driving the vehicle. And you can really just get a good grip, a good grasp on the overall function of the car by giving it a really good road test. Let's get this thing started and go for a drive. Some of the things you want to look for while you're driving is the acceleration of the vehicle. Make sure it accelerates smoothly without any jerking or hesitation, no harshness, roughness. Some of these conditions might indicate there's something wrong with the engine mounts, could be something wrong with the way the transmission shifts. On a warm day like today, you want to put the air conditioning on max. Maybe turn the fan up all the way, make sure that it's blowing nice and cold as you drive. We'll do some more air conditioning checks as we evaluate the vehicle, but this definitely helps while you're driving and give it a dynamic test. So here I can tell you we're braking the vehicle and I'm feeling some pulsating in the brake pedal, a little bit of a shake in the steering wheel. I don't think it's anything that you could probably see on video, but I can definitely feel it. And this is part of the road test experience. You want to see if there's anything that feels abnormal to you. Anything you might be able to identify as a problem that may cost you some money after you purchase the vehicle. I do like to give the car a few hard accelerations, see how that feels, make sure there's no problems. Same thing, maybe a couple of mildly hard braking situations. One of the things you should take note of when you're road testing the vehicle, give a peek out your mirrors and your rear view window. Make sure that there's no smoke coming from the tailpipe, the back of the car. You want to look for some obvious signs of white smoke or blue smoke that might indicate that you've got an engine that's burning some coolant or burning some oil. Always good to take a peek at that before you head back on your road test. Well, we've just concluded our road test and made some notes of a couple of things that we felt during the road test. One of them was just some steering wheel shake, a little vibration in the brakes. Otherwise, everything felt fairly normal. I didn't have any indications of malfunction indicator lights coming on. Everything is off. As a matter of fact, I'm looking here and tire pressures are registering good. That's a good sign. But one of the things I like to do when I get in the garage is power brake the vehicle. So I set the parking brake and then I just put the car in drive. This is only if it's an automatic. This doesn't work on a manual gearbox, but put it in drive and I just hold the brake tightly with the parking brake on, and then I just give it a little gas and just see if the engine mounts feel like they're clunking at all. And I'll do the same thing, move it to the reverse position, and then holding the brake tightly again, parking brake set, and just give it a little gas and see if we can feel any clunking or anything in the engine mount. So one last thing to conclude that. While we're on the interior, I like to go through all the functions of the interior. So we've been driving this a little bit. We've got the air conditioning running on full blast. I can feel it's fairly cold. If you have a thermometer you want to put in the ductwork, depending on the ambient temperature outside, I like to see the temperature get down into the low 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's usually a good indication that our AC is working fairly well. But in addition to that, we want to check the rest of the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning controls. So there's some things on the climate control unit here that I'll run through. So in addition to checking the temperature cold, I like to run them all the way up to hot. So on this vehicle, I'm just going to crank the heat up to high. And while that's switching over to high, you can check some of these other controls on here. So on this dashboard, if you can see, there's a mode button. So this mode button is designed to move us through defrost, vent, and floor. So I usually like to actuate these things. I'll put it on floor and make sure that I'm feeling some air coming out the bottom of both sides. If that's looking good, I might put it on vent and see if we can get some hot air out of the vents now that we've switched it to heat. Make sure all the vents are working properly. And then we want to get it back in defrost mode here and make sure all the way up on top of the dashboard in defrost mode is where the heat should be coming out up on the windshield. That's to defrost the windshield. So if those modes are working, that's great. And then I'll work through the fan speeds. So it's important that not only do you have the high speed, you want to check all the way down to low and then all the way back up again. If all those speeds are working, we're in good shape. This particular vehicle has a sync button, so I like to use the sync and make sure that when I move the one dial, both temperatures move together. And if you turn the sync off, I move one dial and only the driver's side moves or only the passenger side moves independently of each other. And then the last thing I like to check as far as this air conditioning controls are concerned is the recirculate door. So when you flip that to recirculate, you should hear a little something moving in the dashboard. It's going to reroute the fresh air vent so that now it's pulling air from within the cabin and recirculating it back through the HVAC system. So I like to make sure that's functioning as well. Some of the things you'll be listening for, and there's some clicking sounds. Most of the newer cars, they have actuators in there. They're electronically controlled with some plastic gears in them. Sometimes the gears strip and break. So you just want to listen if there's any kind of clicking sounds when you're moving through those selections in the modes or the recirculation or the hot and cold. This is an indication maybe one of those actuators is defective. Next thing I like to do is I like to work on the controls up here. I'm not going to do this right now for this video. It's going to be a little overkill, but turn the radio on and move through all the controls in the radio. Make sure the FM and AM settings are working. If it has any kind of CD player, make sure your CD player is functioning. If it's got some kind of MP3 and you have something you can connect to it, it's a good idea to make sure the Bluetooth is connecting. I also work through the radio controls. This car should have a multitude of speakers in it, so I want to make sure that I move the fader front to back and I move the balance left to right and maybe isolate a couple of the speakers in the car, make sure there's no problem with the speakers where one is crackling, making noise. It might be an indication you have a blown speaker. Moving over to the steering wheel over here, there's a lot of controls on here. We want to just kind of go through all of these things one item at a time and make sure all the buttons work and all the operations are functioning the way they're supposed to. Like I said, I don't want to bore you with this video and make me go through all these little settings on this particular car. You might not have these options if you're looking at a car. But the gist of this interior portion of this after your road test is just to go through all the features and make sure everything's functioning. You can easily even go through all the windows. We can put those down and back up, make sure the auto down and auto up work if it have it. You want to check all your door locks, make sure that these things are actuating in both directions, lock and unlock. Check all your door handles. Another thing that I'll do is I'll go through all the seat belts. I want to make sure the seat belts all plug in and retract properly. Make sure all the seat functions work, forward and backwards, the backrests, any lumbar support, all those things. So it's really just important you go through every function of the car. This car has a sunroof in it. It has a sunshade in it. You want to actuate those, make sure they're functioning. And once you've done everything on the interior and you're satisfied, even these little things like flashers and things, grab a partner, see if somebody can give you a hand checking all your lights. That would be my next thing. So have somebody look at the outside of the vehicle, go through every single light in the car. Headlights, high beams, daytime running lights, left signals, right signals, reverse lights, brake lights, and look at all the yellow or amber color lights. Those are the marker lights or parking lights. Go through all those features. You can go through the windshield wipers as well. We turn those on, spray the windshield, make sure the windshield washers are working, and that would pretty much conclude most of the interior in here. Another thing I would probably do is on your road test, activate the cruise control and make sure that the cruise is engaging and disengaging when you step on the brake and you're able to accelerate and coast through the controls on the steering wheel. Make sure you check the gas cap. We want to look and see it's got a good seal on it and then a cap that's existing. There's your seal. Let's get inside the trunk. When we're in the trunk, we want to check and make sure there's a good spare tire. All the tools should be in place. Looks like we've got the jack and all the lug wrench parts. We want to check the spare tire. We'll go ahead and put a pressure gauge on that shortly and make sure it's got air in it. I like to check the rear child safety locks as well. We close the door, and you shouldn't be able to open it from the inside. That means they're working. So once you've completed everything on the interior that you want to look at, and I recommend you go through just about everything. For sake of simplicity in this video, I didn't want to bore everybody with all the details inside, but obviously you'll be checking the rear view mirror, make sure it's fastened properly. You're checking your sun visors, make sure the lights work when you flip open the vanity mirrors. I mean, you really want to go through everything top to bottom. This is your car. Don't leave any stone unturned. Once you're on the exterior of the vehicle, there are some signs that you're going to look for. And we're going to go through a couple of things here up close for you, but I want to make sure you're checking all the body lines on this car. Make sure they all line up. If they don't, it's an indication that maybe the car has been in an accident, a little fender bender, possibly something more, and hasn't been fixed correctly. So it's important that you kind of go through this. Take a look at the quality of the paint as well. This car has got some fading on the top of the roof. Some of the plastic panels have faded a bit, so sometimes that's an indication the car hasn't had proper wax on it for a period of time. You want to know these things before you buy the car. If they're going to bother you, it's going to cost some money to get them fixed. So just make sure that you're happy with it. At the end of the day, it's your car. These things are not necessarily safety concerns or anything like that, but makes a difference to you as the consumer. And make sure that you got a car that you're happy with when you're done. You see body lines like this with an uneven gap, larger at the front than the back. That's an indication the bumper is not fitting properly against the fender here. And that could be an indication of an accident. It could be something as simple as just bumping a parking block. Either way, you just want to identify these things. You're checking all these seams along the car. They should have fairly even gaps on them, nothing crazy. Right here along the door, you want to check all of these. Along the bottom on the rocker panels, make sure everything lines up. Step back a little bit and take a look at the paint and see if you see any unevenness in the paint. So you might see a panel that doesn't match. That's an indication it's been in an accident and hasn't been painted properly. If you come over here to the roof of this car, you can see the panels on top are made of plastic and they're faded pretty badly. This is fairly common for our region of the US and the Southwest here. The sun is very strong. If we don't get enough wax on these plastic panels, they do start to fade over time. It doesn't mean this car has had any accident damage, just something you should be aware of when you're buying the car. And you can see it's all faded back here. Don't forget to take a look at your wheels for any signs of road rash like this one. This is an indication that it's kind of run up along the curb. If you see any big dents or chunks missing out of the rim or the tire, that might lead to some more severe impact damage. This type of road rash that you see here is fairly normal for a used car. If you want to get underneath the hood, let's take a look at some things. All right, so once you're under the hood, you want to take a look at some basic fluids, whatever you have access to from the top. And then you want to look at the belt or belts. You want to check the air filter and just basically give it a general once-over. You're looking again for alignment issues, maybe any missing covers. There's lots of plastic pieces here that may have been removed and not replaced during an accident repair. And you might see broken wiring pieces, broken hoses, things like that. Just look for anything that seems abnormal to you, okay? A lot of times call them poor repairs that are done that are very obvious to even the layman. Somebody doesn't really know what they're looking at. If you see a giant piece of duct tape wrapped around something, if you see a giant wad of glue, a piece of bubble gum, those are clear indications that something has gone wrong with a repair somewhere. Take a look at your battery terminals. Make sure they have no corrosion on them. They should be clean. They should be tight. And look for any battery acid that's oozing around the outside of the battery. That's an indication the battery needs to be replaced. Your brake fluid is here. You can open the reservoir and look inside and see the quality of the brake fluid. It should be clear or yellow. We can check the air filter here. Remove the clips on it. Gently pry this up and let's take a look at this air filter and see what it looks like. It looks fairly clean. Definitely want to check the oil and see what the condition looks like, see what the level looks like. All of these items we're looking at here are just an indication of how well the vehicle has been maintained. Doesn't mean if you see a dirty air filter or some oil that's dirty that it wasn't maintained. Obviously you want to take into account the mileage that's on the vehicle. If it's a very high mileage vehicle, you can expect to see some wear and tear on it. If the mileage is very low, I would expect to see zero wear and tear on it. Over here you can check the coolant. We can check the washer fluid and see what the level is. There's a belt down in here. We can just check the condition of the belt. Looking for cracks, any kinds of fraying on the belt or any misalignment on the belt would be indication something's wrong there. And generally speaking, when you're walking around this under the hood, you want to check and see if there's any signs of leakage anywhere. Up around the top of the engine, maybe down the back side, around the firewall side, just looking for anything that looks wet or out of place. Okay, this is just a general inspection for you guys while you're looking at your potential vehicle that you want to buy to see if you can see anything out of the ordinary. This might be as far as you're able to go on your own. If you're doing an inspection in the street or in somebody's driveway, there's not a whole lot more you're going to be able to look at without the aid of a vehicle hoist and some more complicated automotive tools that we might connect to this car if you're having a professional inspection done. So just go through these items one at a time, take a peek at everything, make sure it all looks good. So now that you've neared the end of the inspection that you can perform on there, there is one last thing that you might be able to perform on your own. If you happen to own one of these cheap code readers, you can get them on Amazon. It would be worthwhile if you have one to plug it into the OBD2 port. Let's see if there's any trouble codes in there. There shouldn't be if there wasn't any check engine light on, but there might be some in a pending code status. And it's also possible that somebody has cleared the light recently, so there has no code set because the readiness monitors haven't flipped to ready status. And we want to check that as well. It's possible that somebody had a problem with this and cleared the computer codes right before you showed up to look at the vehicle. The check engine light will stay off, everything seems normal, and then a day or two from now, the check engine light pops on and you've got a problem that you've got to deal with. So if you have the ability to do this, I certainly would recommend it. If you bring this in for a professional inspection, this is certainly something that we're going to perform for you during that inspection to make sure that this isn't the case on this vehicle. Let's get a look. So on this tool, you're going to see it says DTCs in this ECU is 0. That means it has no codes in it. It says readiness, okay. All 7 readiness monitors are set. It says readiness incomplete, 0. That means that there aren't any readiness monitors that haven't been activated yet. So we're in good shape with this particular vehicle the way it sits. All the readiness monitors are okay, and we don't have any codes in the system. That's about as far as you really need to go. There's no need to go any deeper at the moment. Now that I've got this vehicle up in the air and we can get our camera underneath it, we're really having difficulty trying to film this on the ground. It's about the same difficulty you're going to have when you're looking at this car on your hands and knees. But we can get a better look at the tires, the tire tread. We can look at the tread depth and some of that wear that I was talking about earlier that goes across the tire. If you're seeing any indications of uneven wear on the tires, that may be a sign that you need an alignment or you have some worn suspension components. So if you can stick your head under the car and you can get a decent look at the tires, you might notice some of that stuff. Again, if you brought it to a professional, put it up in the air on a lift like this, it certainly makes the job a whole lot easier. It is very difficult in the street, in somebody's driveway, to get underneath a vehicle like this and examine anything. Like, as a professional mechanic, I'm not going to be able to do that either. But as far as looking underneath this vehicle when you've got about this much room under the car, it's almost impossible. So that's why I always recommend that you bring it somewhere, have a professional inspection done on it. If you've got this far and you like everything you see, there's no reason you can't spend a couple of bucks more. Cheap insurance is one of my favorite sayings. It's cheap insurance for you. Just take it somewhere, have them put it up in the air like we've got here. They can pull the wheels off, all 4 wheels, do a full brake inspection on it. We can shake down the steering and suspension, make sure there's no loose components in there. We can pull all these covers off. In a second, I want you to kind of walk this car with me. I want to show you how covered this car is. There's literally nothing you can see on here. In addition to that, these covers are going to catch any kind of oil leaks. Unless it's something massive, you're not going to see it until we take the covers down. So just peeking under this car is not going to tell you a whole lot. We really need to get all the covers down and do a proper inspection on it. Again, not something you're able to do out on the road in somebody's driveway. But let's take a peek and see how covered up this car is. Walk with me. There is literally no access point on this engine. This cover is giant. It covers everything here and it connects to another cover. It's almost seamless that goes all the way to the front air dam on the car. There is nothing to see here until you take all this off. It's not until about this point where we can actually see a little bit of the exhaust system. And even though at this point we can see some of the exhaust system, there are still side covers on this vehicle. Walk with me and take a look. Look at what a great job they've done at covering up this vehicle. Not much for you to see under here, which is a little concerning sometimes, but that's the way they want it. They want good airflow and they want to make sure they've got everything tidy underneath. So now that we get back to the rear of the car, finally we can see a little bit of the suspension and some more of the exhaust and the two mufflers on it, but really difficult on the ground for you to determine just about anything. So far, you like everything you see. We've done a pretty thorough inspection. I've even showed you some tips on what's going to happen if you bring it to a professional auto technician and have them do this inspection for you. They're going to check a lot of things you can't get to on your own. But it's not really time to pull the trigger just yet. I want to make sure that you guys are getting all the vehicle history together. You want to pull a Carfax probably and make sure the maintenance has been done. If you can get the maintenance receipts and records from the previous owner, from the seller, that's just as good too. Make sure all the maintenance has been taken care of according to the manufacturer's recommendations. If the vehicle's been over-maintained, don't worry about that. I'm a big proponent of that, so can't do too much service to it. And then the last step that you really want to do, if you've got this far and you love the maintenance records, everything's looking great, is you want to evaluate the title. So make sure that you take a look at the existing title from the seller. It's not blemished, salvaged, rebuilt, any of those things, unless that's what you want to buy. Then by all means you do that, but you need to know ahead of time if there's something wrong with the title, if it's got any blemishes on it, because that really affects the resale of the vehicle. Don't forget to like and subscribe and honk that horn. This way you can get some notifications when we're releasing new content. I hope you guys are really enjoying our videos. Don't forget to check out some more content right here. We're constantly putting together great stuff for you guys. Thanks for watching.